The Martian dust storm howled outside the maintenance bay of Solar Array Complex 7, but Jake Martinez barely noticed it anymore. 6 years on Mars had taught him to tune out the planet's constant tampering, just as he'd learned to ignore the whispers about his outdated methods. His hands moved with practiced precision across the junction box of a malfunctioning solar panel, testing connections others had dismissed as beyond repair. "You're wasting your time, Martinez," called Supervisor Chen from the doorway. "Central's already approved the replacement order. Just let the automated systems handle it." Jake didn't look up from his work. "With respect, sir, there's nothing wrong with this panel that can't be fixed. The efficiency AI just doesn't understand how these older models think." Chen's sigh carried across the bay. "That's exactly the kind of talk that keeps you stuck in maintenance instead of moving up to operations. Sometimes I think you'd rather talk to machines than people." If only Chen knew how right he was. Jake had always felt a connection to technology that went beyond mere understanding. Where others saw cold circuits and lifeless metal, he sensed patterns, rhythms, almost like music. His colleagues attributed his high repair success rate to stubbornness and luck. They didn't know about the dreams. The dreams had started 3 months ago. Visions of vast machines spinning around dying stars, of crystalline structures that captured the energy of entire solar systems. He'd wake with equations burning in his mind, formulae that shouldn't make sense but somehow did. Last week, he'd absent-mindedly sketched a design for what he later realized was a quantum field stabilizer, something that wouldn't be invented on Earth for centuries. A familiar tingle ran through his fingers as he traced the panel's power distribution network. There, a microfracture in the secondary conduit, invisible to standard diagnostics. 10 minutes with a nanosealer, and the panel hummed to life, its efficiency readings climbing past factory specifications. "Impossible," Chen muttered, checking his tablet. The AI ran 3 full scans. "How did you?" The rest of his words were drowned out by a sound that shook the entire complex. A deep, resonant tone that Jake had heard only in his dreams. The maintenance bay's emergency shutters slammed down as proximity alarms screamed to life. Through the reinforced viewing window, Jake watched an impossible shape descend through the Martian storm. A vessel that seemed to be made of light itself, its hull rippling with patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. It was at least 3 times the size of the largest Earth ships he'd ever seen, and it moved with a grace that defied physics. The complex communication system crackled to life with a voice that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his mind. "This is Ambassador Sixtall of the Galactic Concordat. We seek the one known as Jacob Martinez. Our sensors detect his resonance with the ancient technologies. He is required." Jake's heart hammered in his chest as the pieces fell into place. The dreams, the impossible knowledge. The way technology seemed to sing to him. All of it had been leading to this moment. "Martinez," Chen whispered, his face pale. "What did you do?" Before Jake could answer, the maintenance bay's doors opened of their own accord. 3 figures entered, their forms shifting between solid matter and pure energy. The leader, presumably Ambassador Zixtol, regarded Jake with eyes that sparkled like distant galaxies. "Jacob Martinez," the ambassador's voice resonated in Jake's mind. "You possess a gift not seen in 10,000 years. You are a solar smith, one who can commune with the ancient technologies. The Concordat requires your assistance." "I'm just a maintenance technician," Jake protested, though even as he spoke, equations and designs continued to flood his mind. "I fix solar panels." The ambassador's form shimmed with what might have been amusement. "You are far more than that, young one. You can perceive the song of the machines, can you not? Feel the pulse of quantum fields. Dream of stars wrapped in crystalline shells." "How do you know about my dreams?" "Because they are not dreams. They are memories. Memories encoded in your DNA by the ancients themselves, waiting to be awakened. Humanity carries within it seeds planted by those who came before, and you, Jacob Martinez, are the first to bloom." One of the ambassador's companions stepped forward, his form resolving into something vaguely humanoid, composed of shifting geometric patterns. Ambassador, surely you cannot be serious. This primitive can barely maintain his own world's crude solar collectors. The Stellar Engineering Guild will never accept. The Guild's acceptance is irrelevant. Zixtal cut him off. The star heart is failing. None of our most advanced technologies can stabilize it. If we cannot prevent its collapse, 12 inhabited systems will die. We need a solar smith, and after 50,000 years of searching, we have found one. Jake's mind raced. Part of him wanted to dismiss this as an elaborate hallucination, but he could feel the truth of it in his bones. The dreams, the impossible knowledge, the way machines spoke to him, it all made sense now. What exactly do you need me to do? He asked, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. Come with us, Zixtal answered. Learn to use your gift. Help us save billions of lives. The ambassador paused, his form pulsing with gravity. But know this, the path will not be easy. Many in the Concordat view humanity as little more than clever animals. You will face prejudice, skepticism, and quite possibly danger. Jake looked around the maintenance bay at the tools and panels he'd spent years working with. It all seemed so small now, knowing what waited among the stars. He thought of his tiny apartment in the residential complex, of his routine life fixing solar arrays. Then he thought of dying stars and crystalline megastructures, of the chance to save entire worlds. When do we leave? The ambassador's form brightened. Now, time grows short, and you have much to learn. As Jake followed the alien delegates out of the maintenance bay, he heard Chen calling after him. Martinez, you can't just... What am I supposed to tell Central? Jake turned back one last time, a smile playing at his lips. Tell them I finally got that promotion they've been holding back. The last thing he saw before the teleportation field enveloped him was Chen's dumbfounded expression. Then reality shifted, and Jake Martinez, the maintenance technician from Mars, took his first step toward becoming something much more. The journey to save the Star Heart and prove humanity's worth to the galaxy had begun. The Stellar Engineering Guild headquarters would have taken Jake's breath away if he hadn't already lost it several times since leaving Mars. The structure hung in space like a frozen explosion of crystal and light, its spires reaching outward in impossible geometries. At its heart, a miniature star pulsed in carefully controlled fusion, providing both power and a testing ground for apprentice engineers. Try not to gawk, his assigned mentor, Senior Engineer Kovex, said with poorly concealed disdain. The alien's crystalline form shifted colors with each movement, a natural display of emotion that Jake was still learning to interpret. Right now, the deep purple swirls suggested irritation. You're already attracting enough attention without behaving like a primitive encountering fire for the first time. Jake bit back a sharp reply. After 2 weeks of constant belittlement, he'd learned that responding only made things worse. Instead, he focused on the calculations streaming across his neural interface, another gift from the Concordat that had taken 3 painful days to integrate with his primitive nervous system. The numbers sang to him in ways he couldn't explain, each equation a note in a vast cosmic symphony. The other apprentices saw only data, but Jake saw music, saw dance, saw life itself expressed in mathematical terms. Not that any of them would listen to his attempts to explain. Today's test will evaluate your ability to maintain stellar containment, Kovex announced as they entered the training chamber. The other apprentices achieved basic competency within their first few days. Try not to destroy anything expensive. The chamber was a scaled-down version of a star control room, with holographic interfaces floating at various stations. At the center, a sphere of pure energy crackled, a miniature star barely the size of a beach ball, but just as dangerous as its full-sized cousins if mishandled. Begin sequence Alpha 7, Kovex commanded. The tiny star began to pulse erratically, simulating the early stages of instability. Jake reached out with his mind through the neural interface, feeling the familiar tingle as equations and energy fields responded to his touch. But something was wrong. The standard containment protocols weren't matching the star's resonance pattern. "Your response time is inadequate," Kvex noted. "A real stellar core would have already begun collapse." "These protocols," Jake said, fingers dancing through the holographic controls, "they're fighting against the natural flow, like trying to dam a river instead of directing it." The protocols were developed over thousands of years by the finest minds in the Concordat. "They are perfect." Perfect. Jake had heard that word too many times since arriving. Perfect protocols, perfect technology, perfect beings looking down on imperfect humanity. But perfection could become a prison, blinding you to alternatives. The star's pulses grew more violent. Warning signals flashed across the interfaces. The other apprentices had gathered to watch his failure, their crystalline forms glinting with anticipation. Jake closed his eyes, shutting out the disapproving faces and flashing warnings. He listened to the star's song, felt its rhythm, and then he began to do what humans had always done best: improvise. His fingers moved across the controls in patterns that would have horrified his instructors if they had realized what he was doing. Instead of fighting the stellar instabilities, he began working with them, using each pulse to reinforce the containment field in a cascading sequence. "What are you doing?" Kvex demanded. "Those movements make no sense. The protocols clearly state." "The protocols are wrong," Jake said quietly, continuing his dance with the star. "At least for this particular pattern of instability. Sometimes you need to bend so you don't break." The star's pulses began to smooth out, finding a new equilibrium that worked with the containment field instead of against it. The warning signals faded one by one until the sphere glowed with perfect stability, more stable, in fact, than its baseline state. Silence filled the chamber. Jake opened his eyes to find Kvex staring at the readouts in disbelief. The other apprentices murmured among themselves, their crystalline forms flickering with mixed emotions. "Impossible," Kvex said finally. "The energy efficiency readings, they're 12% above theoretical maximums. How did you—" "On Mars," Jake explained, "we can't afford to replace solar panels every time they don't perform perfectly. Sometimes you have to work with what you have, find new ways to solve old problems. Perfection isn't always about following the rules. Sometimes it's about knowing when to break them." Before Kvex could respond, a new presence entered the chamber. Ambassador Zixtal's energy form illuminated the space with an aurora of colors. "Most impressive, Solar Smith," the ambassador said. "It seems your unique perspective may be exactly what we need." Their form shifted, becoming more serious. "The Starheart's condition has worsened. The Guild Council has agreed, reluctantly, to accelerate your training. You will begin work on the actual containment protocols immediately." "Ambassador," Kvex protested, "he's nowhere near ready. His methods are unorthodox, dangerous. His methods just achieved what our perfect protocols could not," Zixtal cut in. "Perhaps it is time we acknowledged that different does not always mean inferior." The ambassador turned to Jake. "Are you prepared to face a real stellar core, young Smith? One that could destroy entire systems if mishandled?" Jake looked at the miniature star, still pulsing steadily with his improvised containment pattern. He thought of Mars, of Earth, of all the human colonies that had learned to thrive by adapting and innovating. Maybe that was why the ancients had hidden their gifts in human DNA, because they knew that sometimes the universe needed people who weren't afraid to try the impossible. "I'm ready," he said, "but I'll need access to complete stellar data, not just the filtered information in the training programs, and I want to study the ancient records about Solar Smiths." "You dare to make demands?" Kvex's form flashed with indignation. "No," Jake replied calmly. "I dare to ask for the tools I need to succeed. There's a difference." The ambassador's form rippled with what Jake had learned to recognize as amusement. Granted, both requests. They turned to Kvex. "Escort him to the archives." And Kvex, Remember that the ancients themselves chose humanity as their heirs. Perhaps it is time we considered why. As Jake followed Cavex out of the chamber, he felt the other apprentices' gazes following him. The whispers had changed. No longer dismissive, but curious, even wondering. He had passed his first real test, not just of skill, but of humanity's potential. The Star Heart waited, and with it, challenges that would test not just his abilities, but everything humanity had become in its long climb to the stars. The ancient archives were unlike anything Jake had imagined, not a database or library, but a vast chamber where information existed as pure energy, swirling in complex patterns that made his neural interface tingle. He'd spent 3 days here, absorbing knowledge that no human had ever accessed, when he first sensed her presence. She moved like starlight through crystal, her form a perfect fusion of energy and matter that made the other crystalline beings look crude by comparison. Her core pulsed with patterns that reminded Jake of the solar harmonics he'd been studying, but infinitely more complex. "You're not supposed to be able to see my true form," she said, her voice carrying notes that made the archive's energy patterns ripple. "Your neural interface shouldn't be capable of processing quantum crystalline signatures." Jake smiled, not looking up from the energy stream he was studying. "I'm getting used to doing things I'm not supposed to be capable of. Though I admit, I didn't expect to meet the princess of the crystalline dominion in the archives." Tilara's form shifted in what he'd learned to recognize as surprise. "You know who I am." The archives contain records of all major stellar engineering projects from the past millennium. Your work on the Helios Cascade was brilliant. Unorthodox, too, for someone of your station. She moved closer, her energy field interacting with the archive's streams in ways that created new patterns, new information. "You studied my work. Among others. But yours stood out. You didn't just follow the established protocols, you improved them. The way you modified the quantum flux barriers to account for stellar plasma turbulence. That's exactly the kind of adaptive thinking we need for the Star Heart." "The Council doesn't share your enthusiasm for improvement," Tilara said, a note of bitterness in her harmonic voice. "They believe the old ways are always best. That's why they've restricted my access to the Star Heart project, despite my expertise." She paused, studying him. "But you're different. You see things as they could be, not just as they are." Jake finally looked up, meeting her gaze. Her eyes were like windows into the cosmos itself, swirling with colors he had no names for. "Where I come from, seeing things differently isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. Yes, Earth, Mars. Such harsh worlds compared to our engineered systems. Perhaps that's why." She stopped herself, but Jake could guess what she'd been about to say. "Why the ancients chose us. I've been wondering that myself." He gestured to the energy streams around them. "According to these records, the solar smiths weren't just engineers. They were revolutionaries. They changed how the galaxy thought about stellar engineering. Maybe the ancients knew humanity would need to do the same." Tilara moved to his side, her form casting prismatic shadows across the archive's displays. "Show me what you've learned. About the solar smiths, about the Star Heart. Show me how you see things." For the next several hours, they lost themselves in the data streams. Jake shared his theories about using controlled instabilities to strengthen containment fields, while Tilara offered insights into crystalline technology that no amount of archive data could provide. Their minds worked in synchronicity through the neural interface, building on each other's ideas in ways that felt as natural as breathing. "This is remarkable," Tilara said as they completed another simulation. "Your method of using harmonic resonance to reinforce quantum barriers, it shouldn't work, but it does. It's like you're teaching the stars to sing a new song." "That's exactly what it feels like," Jake admitted. "The mathematics, the energy patterns, they're all music to me. Different frequencies that can either clash or harmonize. The trick is finding the right rhythm." "The Council would say you're being poetic rather than scientific. They don't understand that sometimes poetry and science are the same thing. She turned to him, her form glowing more intensely. I want to help you with the star heart. Jake's pulse quickened. The Council. The Council believes in perfect solutions that don't exist. The star heart is dying, and their precious protocols aren't saving it. We need to try something new. Her form flickered with determination. I studied your test results, your unconventional approaches. You have an intuitive understanding of stellar mechanics that rivals the ancient records. But you lack experience with quantum crystalline technology. Together, we could. The archive's entrance suddenly pulsed with new energy as Kvex materialized. Princess Tilara, the Council has been looking for you. Your father. Can wait, Tilara said firmly. I'm conducting research vital to the Star Heart project. Kvex's form rippled with distress. Your Highness, consorting with a human apprentice is beneath your station. The political implications alone. The political implications of 12 systems dying because we were too proud to accept help. Those concern me more. She turned back to Jake. Meet me at the Stellar Observation Deck after your next training session. There's something I need to show you. Before Kvex could protest further, Tilara vanished in a flash of crystalline light, leaving Jake to face his mentor's disapproval. You have no idea what forces you're dealing with, Kvex warned. The princess may be brilliant, but she's also rebellious, dangerous. Her ideas about stellar engineering are nearly as radical as yours. If you collaborate with her, the Council will. The Council brought me here to save the Star Heart, Jake interrupted. They don't get to dictate how I do it. He began shutting down the archive's interfaces. You know what I think, Kvex? I think you're all so afraid of imperfection that you've forgotten how to innovate. But perfection isn't an endpoint, it's a journey. And sometimes you need to walk new paths to reach it. As Jake left the archives, his mind was already racing with possibilities. Tilara's insights into crystalline technology, combined with his intuitive understanding of stellar harmonics, they might actually have a chance to save the Star Heart. And if they succeeded, they could revolutionize stellar engineering itself. But first, they'd have to convince the Council to let them try. And as Jake had learned, nothing in the Concordat was ever that simple. The observation deck awaited, and with it, a partnership that would either save billions of lives or end in spectacular failure. Either way, humanity's mark on the galaxy was about to become much more interesting. The stellar observation deck of the Guild headquarters offered a view that made even veteran stellar engineers pause in awe. Through quantum-enhanced viewing fields, the Star Heart blazed before them, a dying giant whose every pulse sent ripples of distortion through nearby space. But Jake Martinez saw something else in those pulses, a pattern, a rhythm that shouldn't exist in natural stellar physics. You see it too, don't you? Tilara's crystalline form shimmed beside him, her energy signature harmonizing with the quantum field in ways that still fascinated him. The irregularities in the fusion cycles. They're not random, Jake confirmed, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls to isolate specific energy patterns. Look at this sequence. It repeats every 17 minutes, but with subtle variations that seem to respond to the containment field's frequency. The princess moved closer, her form casting prismatic patterns across the display. The Council believes these are simply signs of stellar degradation. But you and I know better, don't we? Jake nodded, pulling up the ancient records he'd been studying. The solar smiths didn't just work with stars, they transformed them, created structures that could exist within stellar cores, using the plasma as both power source and camouflage. His heart raced as the implications became clear. The Star Heart isn't just dying, it's trying to tell us something. Tilara's form pulsed with excitement. We need to get closer. The Guild's remote observations aren't enough. We need to see the core structures directly. The Council will never approve a close-range mission, not with a containment field so unstable. Then we don't ask them. Tilara moved to a secondary console, her energy form interfacing directly with the systems. I have access to a research vessel, small, agile, with advanced crystalline shielding. We will be there and back before anyone realizes we're gone. Jake's newfound stellar engineering instincts warred with his human caution. That's incredibly dangerous. If we're wrong about the pattern. And if we're right? Tilara turned to him, her cosmic eyes intense. Jake, you've studied the ancient records more thoroughly than anyone in centuries. You know what they were capable of. If there's even a chance that the Star Heart contains one of their structures. The observation deck's entrance pulsed with new energy as Ambassador Zixtal materialized. An interesting theory, one that the Council would no doubt dismiss as fantasy. Jake and Tilara sprang apart, but the ambassador's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Your Excellency, Tilara began, we were just planning an unauthorized expedition to the Star Heart. Yes, I gathered that. Zixtal moved to the viewing field, studying the massive star. Did you know, young Smith, that your ancestor Marcus wasn't the first human to encounter our civilizations? Jake blinked at the sudden change of subject. I don't understand. The ancients visited Earth many times during your species' development. They left markers in your DNA, yes, but they also left warnings in ours. Warnings about humanity's potential, your capacity for both creation and destruction, your inability to leave mysteries unsolved. The ambassador turned back to them. The Council fears these traits. I, however, believe they are exactly what we need. Tilara's form brightened. Then you'll help us. I will do more than that. I will give you official sanction for your mission. Zixtal's energy patterns shifted to display formal diplomatic credentials. The Council may not approve, but they cannot deny my authority in this matter. However, the ambassador's tone grew serious. If you find what I suspect awaits within the Star Heart, it will change everything. Are you prepared for those consequences? Jake thought of his simple life on Mars, fixing solar panels and dreaming of the stars, how far he'd come since then, and how far he might yet have to go. He looked at Tilara, saw his own determination reflected in her crystalline form. We're ready, he said. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Tilara's research vessel, the Stellar Whisper, was a marvel of crystalline engineering. Barely larger than an Earth shuttle, its hull was composed of living crystal that could adapt to stellar conditions in real time. As they approached the Star Heart, its true magnitude became apparent. The star filled their entire field of view, its surface a churning sea of plasma and magnetic storms. But beneath that chaos, Jake could feel a hidden rhythm growing stronger. The containment fields are holding, Tilara reported from her crystalline interface chair. But these readings, Jake, look at this energy signature. The holographic displays showed something impossible, a perfectly geometric structure buried deep within the stellar core, its edges barely visible through the plasma storms. It's a solar forge, Jake breathed, recognizing the patterns from his studies. The ancients built it into the star itself, using the fusion reactions as a power source. But why here? Why the Star Heart? Before Tilara could respond, the structure pulsed with new energy. The star's surface erupted in synchronized patterns, and suddenly their small ship was caught in a beam of pure quantum energy. The forge. Tilara called out as the ship's crystals struggled to adapt. It's scanning us. No, it's scanning you, Jake. The beam passed through him, and in that moment, Jake understood. The dreams, the impossible knowledge, his connection to technology, it had all been leading to this. The solar forge wasn't just a structure. It was a key, waiting for the right person to unlock it. As the energy filled his neural interface, new information flooded his mind. He saw the ancients' grand plan, their reason for choosing humanity as their heirs, and he realized that saving the Star Heart was only the beginning. The real challenge, and the real test of humanity's worth, was just beginning. The crystalline dominion's Grand Council chamber erupted in chaos as the news spread. Crystalline beings of various ranks and forms pulsed with agitation, their colors shifting rapidly through spectrums of outrage and disbelief. At the center of the storm stood Jake Martinez and Princess Tilara, their forms casting intermingled shadows across the chamber's polished floor. "This is unprecedented." High Counselor Vix Thor's crystalline form blazed with furious light. "Not only did you conduct an unauthorized mission to the Star Heart, but now we learn that a human, a barely evolved primate, has generated viable offspring with a member of the royal house." Tilara's form pulsed defiantly, one hand protectively over her midsection, where a subtle glow betrayed the presence of new life, a hybrid of crystalline energy and human DNA that should have been impossible. "The ancient records speak of such possibilities," she argued, her voice carrying harmonics of both strength and pride. "The solar smiths were meant to bridge the gap between organic and crystalline life. What Jake and I have created is proof of their vision." "Their vision?" Another counselor scoffed. "Or their greatest mistake. Look at what your human has done since arriving here. He defies our protocols, corrupts our princess, and now claims to have discovered some grand ancient plan within the Star Heart itself." Jake stepped forward, his neural interface humming with the knowledge the Solar Forge had downloaded into his mind. "What I discovered isn't just a plan. It's our only hope of saving the Star Heart and the 12 systems that depend on it. The ancients built the forge for exactly this moment, waiting for someone who could see patterns differently, who could bridge the gap between your perfect order and humanity's creative chaos." The chamber's energy fields rippled as Ambassador Zixtal materialized. "He speaks the truth. The data they recovered from the Solar Forge is remarkable. The ancients foresaw this convergence. They knew that only the combination of crystalline precision and human adaptability could face the challenges ahead." "And what of this abomination growing within the princess?" Vix Thor demanded. "Would you have us celebrate the dilution of our royal bloodline?" Tilara's form flared with such intensity that several counselors stepped back. "Our child is not an abomination. It is the first of a new generation that will understand both the song of the stars and the rhythm of human innovation. Can you not see? This is evolution, not dilution." Jake felt a familiar tingle through his neural interface, the same sensation he'd experienced in the Solar Forge. Without warning, holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing detailed scans of the life growing within Tilara. The hybrid embryo pulsed with both crystalline energy and organic patterns, its DNA structure more complex than anything the Council had ever seen. "Remarkable," breathed Dr. Kovacs, who had been quietly analyzing the data. "The child's genetic structure, it's not just viable, it's superior. Enhanced stellar sensitivity, advanced neural processing, perfect integration of organic and crystalline traits. This is beyond anything our genetic archives predicted possible." "Because you've spent millennia pursuing perfection through isolation," Jake said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "But the ancients knew that true perfection comes from adaptation, from combining strengths rather than enforcing purity." Ambassador Zixtal moved to the center of the chamber. "There is a way to resolve this matter according to both tradition and necessity. The ancient trials of worth, specifically the Star Walker's Challenge. If Jake can complete it, he proves himself worthy of both his Solar Smith heritage and union with the royal house." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Star Walker's Challenge hadn't been attempted in thousands of years. Most considered it a mere legend, a test that required a stellar engineer to navigate the coronosphere of an active star, harmonizing with its energy patterns to reach a designated point within its structure. "You would risk the princess's chosen mate in a trial that has claimed the lives of our greatest engineers." Vix Thor's tone suggested he wasn't entirely opposed to the idea. "I'll do it," Jake said before anyone could object. He turned to Tilara, saw both fear and faith in her cosmic eyes. "The Solar Forge showed me things about stellar engineering that even your ancestors didn't know. And more importantly, it showed me why the ancients chose humanity. We don't just adapt, We thrive on challenges that others consider impossible. Talara's form shifted closer to his, their energy fields intermingling in a display that made several counselors look away. "We face the challenge together," she declared. "The child we carry represents both our peoples. Its future, and the future of the Star Heart itself, depends on proving that our union is not just acceptable, but necessary." The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembly. Finally, High Counselor Vixthor spoke, his tone heavy with formal authority. "Very well. Jake Martinez, claimed Solar Smith and suitor to our princess, you will face the Star Walker's challenge. If you succeed, your union will have our blessing, and your child will be recognized as a true heir of both lineages." His form darkened. "If you fail, neither you nor your hybrid offspring will have any claim to our royal house. Do you accept these terms?" Jake looked at Tilara, at the subtle glow of their growing child, at the holographic displays still showing the Star Heart's deteriorating condition. Everything he'd experienced since leaving Mars had led to this moment. "I accept," he said, "but I have one condition of my own. When I succeed, the Council must accept that humanity isn't just ready to join galactic society. We're essential to its future. No more treating us as primitive curiosities. We've earned our place among the stars." The ambassador's form pulsed with what might have been pride. "The trial begins at next stellar apex," they announced. "May the wisdom of the ancients guide your steps through the fire, Solar Smith." As the council chamber emptied, Jake and Tilara remained, their forms casting a single shadow on the floor. The greatest test of both their love and humanity's potential awaited, and failure meant more than just personal loss. It meant the death of a dream the ancients had planted in human DNA eons ago. The Star Walker's challenge would either prove humanity's worth to the galaxy or demonstrate why some barriers were never meant to be crossed. The Star Heart's corona blazed before Jake's crystalline vessel, its surface a churning ocean of plasma and magnetic storms. From this close, the star's song was almost overwhelming, a symphony of quantum harmonics that made his neural interface resonate with ancient power. The Solar Forge's knowledge thrummed through his consciousness, showing him patterns within patterns, rhythms within rhythms. Final system check complete. Tilara's voice came through their quantum-linked communications. Though Council protocol demanded she remain at the observation station, her energy signature pulsed through their connection, intertwined with the subtle presence of their unborn child. "The Star Walker's path is mapped. Jake, no one has ever survived direct coronosphere immersion beyond the 60-second mark." "Good thing I'm not planning to survive it," Jake replied, his hands dancing across the crystalline controls. "I'm planning to master it." The vessel's living crystal hull hummed in response to his touch. Like everything else in this advanced civilization, it had been designed for perfection rather than adaptation. But Jake had spent the last 12 hours rewriting its quantum matrices, teaching it to think more like its human pilot, to bend rather than break, to flow rather than resist. Star Heart containment fields at 23% and falling, announced the automated monitoring system. Stellar collapse imminent within 48 hours. High Counselor Vixthor's voice cut through the channel. "Remember, human, you must reach the designated coordinates within the star's convection zone, activate the harmonic beacon, and return to safe distance. Exceed the survival threshold, and your vessel's emergency protocols will engage, regardless of your wishes." Jake smiled grimly. What the Council didn't know was that Tilara had helped him disable those protocols during their preparations. They didn't understand that sometimes survival meant pushing beyond established limits. "Beginning descent," Jake announced. The vessel dove toward the star's surface, its crystalline hull already beginning to strain against the increasing energy levels. Through his neural interface, Jake could feel the star's magnetic fields like great rivers of force, could see the currents and eddies in its plasma flows. The first layer of the coronosphere engulfed his ship in fire. Warning signals screamed as temperature and radiation levels soared beyond safety parameters. But Jake wasn't fighting the star's power, he was joining its dance. 30 seconds, came Tilara's tense voice. Hull integrity at 70%. Jake's consciousness expanded, merging with both ship and star. The Solar Forge's knowledge showed him how to read the plasma currents, how to slip between magnetic field lines like a fish swimming upstream. His human intuition combined with ancient wisdom to find paths that shouldn't exist. 45 seconds. Hull integrity critical. But Jake barely heard the warnings. He could feel something deeper now. The star heart's true rhythm, the secret pulse that marked it as more than just another dying star. The Solar Forge hadn't been built here by accident. Jake, Tilara's voice carried both fear and wonder. The energy readings, they're impossible. The star's core structure is changing. 60 seconds. The survival threshold passed, but Jake pressed deeper. The star heart's plasma parted before his vessel like a curtain of fire, revealing what the ancients had hidden at its center, not just a solar forge, but an entire network of quantum crystalline structures, dormant for millennia, waiting for someone who could wake them. By the first light, Vixthor breathed. The star, it's singing. Jake's consciousness touched the ancient network, and understanding flooded through him. The star heart wasn't dying, it was transforming. The Solar Forge was just one component of a vast mechanism designed to elevate stellar engineering to its next evolution. Tilara, Jake called through their link. Remember how the crystalline matrix in our child showed perfect integration of organic and energy patterns? The ancients didn't just choose humanity to save their technology. They chose us to help it evolve. His fingers flew across the controls, no longer following any protocol, but the music he felt in his soul. The Star Heart's song rose to a crescendo as Jake wove new harmonies into its ancient chorus. Quantum structures that had lain dormant for eons began to pulse with renewed purpose. 120 seconds, Tilara announced, her voice filled with awe. Hull integrity somehow holding. Jake, the containment field readings, they're stabilizing. But how? The ancients built the Star Heart as more than just a power source, Jake explained, his consciousness still linked to the star's deepest structures. It's a template, a blueprint for a new kind of stellar engineering that combines crystalline precision with organic adaptability. Just like our child, it needs both aspects to reach its full potential. The star's surface erupted in synchronized patterns of light and energy as ancient systems awakened fully. Jake guided his vessel through the transforming corona, feeling the star's power flow through him, through the ship, through the quantum link to Tilara and their unborn child. When he finally emerged from the coronosphere, the Star Heart blazed behind him with renewed vigor. Its light had changed, taking on crystalline qualities that made the quantum engineer's instruments struggle to comprehend the readings. The containment fields, Kavex reported, his tone stunned. They're not just stable, they're self-regenerating. The star is maintaining its own equilibrium through some kind of organic crystalline fusion process. This defies everything we thought we knew about stellar physics. Jake docked his vessel at the observation station, his neural interface still humming with the star's new song. Tilara met him at the airlock, her crystalline form glowing with joy and triumph. The subtle pulse of their child seemed stronger now, as if it too had been strengthened by the star's transformation. "You did it," she whispered as their energy fields merged. "You survived the impossible and saved 12 systems in the process." "We did it," Jake corrected. "You, me, and the next generation we're creating together." The ancients knew that the future belongs to those who can bridge different worlds, different ways of thinking. They left their legacy in human DNA because they knew we'd never stop pushing boundaries, never accept that something was impossible just because it had never been done before. The observation chamber filled with light as the full Galactic Council materialized. High Counselor Vixthor stepped forward, his crystalline form showing complex emotions. "Jake Martinez," he intoned formally, "you have more than fulfilled the Star Walker's challenge. Your union with Princess Tilara is blessed, and your child will be recognized as a true heir to both lineages." He paused, his form shifting to show humility. Moreover, you have shown us that perhaps our pursuit of perfection has blinded us to the possibility of evolution. The star heart stands as proof that the future lies not in isolation, but in cooperation between all sentient species. Ambassador Zixtol moved forward. The ancients chose well when they seeded their gifts in humanity. You don't just solve problems, you transform them into opportunities. The galaxy needs that spirit now more than ever. Jake looked out at the transformed star heart, its crystalline light pulsing in harmony with the quantum fields around it. He felt Talara's presence beside him, their energy patterns intertwined, their child growing stronger with each moment, and he knew that this was just the beginning. The ancients left us more than just technology, he said. They left us a mission, to prove that the greatest achievements come not from clinging to perfection, but from daring to embrace change. Humanity is ready to help lead that change, not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners in the galaxy's evolution. As if in response, the star heart pulsed with new light, its transformed energy washing over them in waves of possibility. The future stretched out before them, full of challenges and opportunities that would require the best of both human and crystalline nature to face. Jake Martinez, the simple mechanic from Mars, had become something more, a bridge between worlds, a proof of humanity's part